This is the DJI Mini 3 Pro, the successor to the Mini 2. Yes, it now has the Pro in its name, and after we've flown this drone for quite a bit, we do think it deserves the Pro moniker. If you want a compact drone as a drone enthusiast or a hobbyist, you should really consider this cute little drone, and this is our review of the DJI Mini 3 Pro. So what makes the DJI Mini 3 Pro a pro drone compared to the Mini 2? Well, first of all, instead of just a sensor on the bottom of the drone, it also has sensors for the front and back for collision avoidance, because if you're flying this drone, it's really quite easy to crash into a wall or it gets stuck in a tree, and you wouldn't want that, especially for such an expensive product. Aside from that, it also has better shooting options now that puts it more in line with the higher-end Air 2S and even the Mavic series. These include quick shots, master shots, and just a whole bunch of options for more professional-looking footage. As for the camera itself, it's a 48 megapixel shooter with a 1/1.3 inch sensor size, and it's stabilized on 3 axes. It also has an aperture of f1.7, which should make for better low light performance, which we'll get to further down this review. One of the best selling points of DJI's mini drones is the fact that they are lightweight, so you don't need to register it in certain countries. This drone, for example, weighs only 249 grams, so if you're in the US, for example, you don't have to get this drone registered. Here in Malaysia, however, we only need to register drones that are above 20 kg in weight, as far as our research can tell. So it's not a huge selling point for us Malaysians, but it is convenient if you plan to travel with this because it's such a small, compact and lightweight drone to bring around. That's about it for the drone itself, but if you get the DJI RC bundle, which comes with a controller, this is what you'll get. This is called the DJI RC as far as we can tell, and compared to older controllers for the Mini or even the Air 2S, it now has a built-in screen which is surprisingly sharp. The fact that there's now a built-in screen makes it more seamless to fly the drone, because previously you will have to attach your phone to the controller to use it, because it still uses the DJI Fly app to fly the drone. Now let's get to the positives of the DJI Mini 3 Pro, starting with the flying experience. Once you are used to the controls of the drone, it's actually quite easy to fly it to wherever you want it to. One thing that is really quite helpful when you're flying this drone is that a ring will appear if it detects any objects on the front or the back, and it will show you not to go to these directions because, well, there is an object there and you wouldn't want to crash your drone. DJI says that this drone still has relatively good wind resistance despite being so small and lightweight, but in our experience, it does shake a little bit when there's a lot of wind blowing around. But the 3-axis stabilization ensures that the shot still looks nice and well stabilized. I also like that this drone has 3 flying modes: C, which stands for Cine, which I assume is a short form of cinema, which slows down the drone quite a bit for a more cinematic shot. N mode, on the other hand, is the normal flying mode, so it flies at the normal speed. S mode, on the other hand, stands for Sport, which speeds up this drone quite a bit for quicker looking shots if that's what you want. Depending on how fast you're going to fly the drone, you can expect to get different battery lives out of this approximately 2400 mAh cell. In our usage scenario, we got about 28 minutes of flight time while shooting in 4K at 30 FPS in C mode, which is the slowest mode. According to DJI, however, you can get up to 34 minutes of flight time, but we imagine that's shooting at 1080p at a lower frame rate, so it's certainly achievable in our opinion. Now let's talk about shooting modes that give the DJI Mini 3 Pro its Pro moniker, starting with Quick Shot. It includes drone, spiral, or even rocket, which are basically pre-configured flight paths that gives you professional looking shots. There are also active track and point of interest, which will track a subject or circle around it, such as a car or a person, depending on what you want to shoot. Last but certainly not least is Master Shot. If you're familiar with a Samsung phone, it is basically single take, where you just let the drone do its thing and it will return a bunch of footage of your subject and you can choose whichever that you like. It's a very convenient feature if you're not sure what to shoot for, so you just let the drone do its thing. It's also worth noting that the Mini 3 Pro supports the Cine-like profile. It's basically a flat color profile that preserves highlights and shadows so that it is easier to do color grading. As for image quality, well, this drone can capture really good looking shots, especially in daytime. Yes, it looks a little bit oversaturated with some over sharpening, but it does make for a flattering looking shot which you can just share to social media and people will be impressed. Speaking of social media, did you know that this camera can turn sideways 90 degrees to shoot in vertical mode? So you can use it to get some TikTok videos or Snapchat if you're still on that platform, and of course Instagram stories. Since we're talking about image quality, let's segue to the nighttime shots. And in this regard, it's not quite as good, despite the fact that it has an f1.7 aperture and dual native ISO support. There is some noise, especially in the shadows, and you also might get some flickering depending on your settings. But overall, at least the images are properly exposed, and for a consumer drone, the image quality is very serviceable. Another shortcoming of the Mini 3 Pro, and this is quite a big one, is the fact that it has an equally big price tag. The drone itself costs 3,399 ringgit for the Malaysian market. This is a big price increase from the Mini 2, and it puts it even closer to the Air 2S, which starts at 4,499 ringgit here in Malaysia, and that drone is a bigger, more capable drone. Although this drone itself costs 3,399 ringgit, we highly recommend that you get the Fly More kit to get 2 extra batteries, a charging dock, extra pair of blades for all 4 parts of the drone, charging cable, as well as the back itself to easily transport the drone. Adding on this to the drone itself at the time of purchase will cost you an extra 800 ringgit. But let's say you also want the controller. Well, this controller is an additional 800 ringgit, so you will be paying 4,199 ringgit for the drone and the controller. If you also want the Fly More kit, then you're gonna pay 4,999 ringgit, which is basically 5,000 ringgit for this whole set. So with all of this in mind, is the DJI Mini 3 Pro worth it? Well, in our opinion, yes, it's still a very good compact drone. Although the DJI Air 2S doesn't cost that much more compared to this drone, that one is a bigger drone that is also harder to bring around. The Mini 3 Pro, on the other hand, is more compact, you can fold it in and bring it around much easier, and it's still, at the end of the day, more affordable, even though just by 1,100 ringgit. All in all, if you're looking for a compact, portable drone for traveling or whatever with most of the features of higher-end DJI drones, look no further than the Mini 3 Pro. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and always stay tuned for more good stuff to come here on this channel and nextshift.com.